VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. Welcome to the third week of the offseason. We'll be here on Wednesday as well to talk with Josh Fry about some of his offseason predictions. But to really get things started for the offseason, at least in terms of predicting what's going to happen, we'll have Josh tomorrow. But tonight, I want to chat with you guys and gals about an offseason endorsement or would-be plan for the Vikings. We're going to have about 6 or 7 steps to this thing. I want to make it crystal clear that this is not my prediction. This is my endorsement. What I would do if I was in charge. I'm not. It would be cool if I was. But the next several things you're going to hear over these 20 minutes or whatnot are going to be what I would do if I was in charge of the Vikings. So why don't you listen along? I'll have a separate show probably soon here about my predictions for the offseason. We'll probably get to that early next week. But in the meantime, tomorrow we'll talk to Josh Fry about his. So we're going to go through, let's see, players to cut, players to re-sign, players to sign, external free agents, because the Vikings have about $60 million in cap space. What I would do in the draft, you get it. Over these next week, we don't have football. We don't have Vikings football for about 7.5 months. So let's start to peek at how the 2025 Vikings can look. All right, the very first thing I would do, I don't think this is a controversial take anymore, but if you are a Sam Darnold guy, good for you. I am ready to be done with him forever. I don't have a major personal beef with Sam Darnold. In fact, I thought it was really fantastic how he reclaimed his career just like we asked him to. This mutual, admiration society agreement where he'd play great for a year and then go take a contract elsewhere. That's what I want to happen. I know that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is a numbers analytical guy where if you have enough darts you're throwing the dartboard, it's good to hedge your bets. But I don't want Darnold at 30, 40 million to be part of that bet hedge or anything to do with the Vikings, because I don't want anything threatening J.J. McCarthy's ascension to QB1, nor do I want to get right back into the Kirk Cousins era of team building where you're paying a non-elite quarterback $40 million per year and hoping for the best with the rest of free agency in the draft. I thought we learned our lesson from that for 6 years. So I don't want anything to do with Sam Darnold unless he comes back on another $15 million deal, which he would be silly to do because he can probably cash in with the Raiders, Giants, Steelers, Seahawks, or Rams if Matthew Stafford retires. My main grievance with Sam Darnold, aside from the money, that's the primary one, is let's say in theory, Kevin O'Connell convinced Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, let me run this back with Sam one more time. We can do this. And Adofo-Mensah caved and was like, that's fine. We can do the Packers way with McCarthy and just sit him. Have him watch indefinitely. My major problem with doing that again with McCarthy is I already know he is going to ball out at training camp. He will ball out in the preseason. He'll probably ball out for the first 3 or 4 months of the season. But then we all have to wait and cross our fingers and hold our breath that he won't faceplant again when it matters the most. I'm not willing to wait for that, take that risk, or have the agony that we just witnessed at Ford Field or at whatever the Cardinal Stadium's called in Arizona. I just don't want to have this big, grand-ass 17-game regular season sequel of Sam Darnold to wait and find out if he's going to crumble again. We've already tried that. It didn't work. Meanwhile, we have the guy of the future waiting. So my first part of this offseason endorsement and plan is to get the hell rid of Sam Darnold. Thank you for your service. Go play for the Raiders or something like that. The next is probably a long shot, but I would convince Harrison Smith to stay for one more year. The guy did not have a noticeable drop-off in 2024. Now, he's not the same dude he was in 2017, but we're not keeping him around for a charity case. It's not like, oh, this guy clearly sucks, but we love him. No, he's actually pretty good, and he's a general on the backside of the defense. So if only for the sake of Vikings history, I want Harrison Smith to cross paths with J.J. McCarthy as one season as McCarthy's the starter. I would see if you can convince Harrison Smith to come back one more time. I think it will help because it appears Brian Flores is on his way back after not getting a head coach job. And I would be the first to tell you if Harrison Smith was washed, if he just sucked, I'd say, it's time for him to hang it up. But I just don't see that on Sundays when I watch him. So for one final hurrah, to get him through his age 36 season as a hard-hitting safety, let's have Harrison Smith come back one more time for retirement and then sign him to whatever deal is fair. I think everybody can get on board with that. The next is the people that I would cut. These are pretty common sense candidates. Garrett Bradbury has been a decent center, but when you are drafted in round 1 of a draft as a center, you should be a lock to be a Pro Bowler. It's why centers hardly ever get drafted in the first round. So when Rick Spielman took his big swing on Bradbury, 6 years ago now, It didn't quite work out. The guy is a pretty good run blocker, a really good run blocker, and then he's just mid when it comes to pass protection. And every single time we watch a Vikings game against a team like the Giants, who has Dexter Lawrence, or the Packers, the Kenny Clark, you know the Garrett Bradbury is going to get bullied. I don't want to have to do that anymore. I want to let the guy go get a sweet paycheck elsewhere, let him go run block for the Seahawks or something like that. And the Vikings should shoot for the stars to get a guy who can run block and pass block. You don't have to spend a first rounder. Please don't. But we'll get to that on what the theory will be. But I don't want to settle anymore for an undersized center that, is good at run blocking most of the time. But when it comes to dominant nose tackles, they eat them for lunch. We shouldn't have to live like that. Why don't we fix it this offseason? Ed Ingram, I think they can cut bait with him because he got benched midseason. They don't have a viable in-house strategy right now unless they re-sign Dalton Reisner. And then I would cut Brian Asamoah. They clearly don't like him. It's another member of the infamous 2022 draft class. Asamoah just doesn't play besides special teams. And if you cut Bradbury, Ingram, and Asamoah, I believe you can save up to about $10 million. And you can turn around and spend that on one or two free agents in March or April. So I have let Sam Darnold leave for the love of God. I don't even think you can franchise tag and trade him because, I don't know, the buzz is kind of you get a late rounder for Darnold. Well, who cares? What am I going to do with a fifth rounder for Darnold when he walks? We'll probably get a compensatory pick. So let Darnold go play for whoever he wants to work for. Don't waste your time with a franchise tag and piss him off. Convince Harrison Smith to come back one more time. Cut Garrett Bradbury, Ed Ingram, and Brian Asamoah. Now, here's the guys I would re-sign. A dirty little secret about Vikings football is about half the roster is a free agent right now. That's why there's so much cap space. I would re-sign Cam Akers, if only so we don't have to trade for him again in September or October. He is a fantastic RB2. You saw it with the pass against the Packers when he scooped it off the ground and sealed the game. I would re-sign Dan Feeney, believe it or not just because he looks cool, but because he's a decent depth piece. Shaq Griffin is a guy I'd bring back because I think that he can be a spot starter when called upon. Otherwise, a veteran presence in a cornerback room that will need a veteran presence. I thought Griffin played pretty well this year, certainly not a Pro Bowl or anything like that. But I think it would make sense. What is he? I think about 28, 29. Bring him back on whatever $3 or $4 million deal, and if something happens to Mekhi Blackman, boom, you have Shaq Griffin. I would also re-sign Camu Grugier-Hill because he seemed to play pretty damn good when Blaise Cashman got hurt, Ivan Pace got hurt, and you like that dependability in the middle of the field. Theo Jackson is important for me because I want to see what his upside is. Re-sign him in an offseason where Harrison Smith could retire and Cameron Bynum might depart. Daniel Jones is the guy, believe it or not, I would sign as QB2. For starter, here we go. I do not want Daniel Jones to be in a summer camp competition with J.J. McCarthy, but what I do want is him to be the exact same thing that Darnold was per dollars and cents, a 1-year, $10 million QB2 for your rookie quarterback, if rookie quarterback hurts his knee again, or you just need some sort of sturdy presence in the room, as the Vikings seem like they enjoy now. Give me Daniel Jones back on the same contract that Sam Darnold signed last year. Johnny Munt is one of the best TE3s, kind of an oxymoron in the NFL. I would bring Munt back. David Quesenberry, to me, feels essential because Darisaw is recovering from his torn ACL. I'd like the depth there. Trent Sherfield, he's proved to be our special teams ace, so I would certainly bring him back for 1 year and $2 million or whatever he's going to cost. I could be talked into Jihad Ward as a depth edge rusher, although you'll find out here soon Patrick Jones is on my outgoing list. Vikings no longer need Patrick Jones because they have Dallas Turner, but I would bring Jihad Ward back for depth because he can also play on the interior of the defensive line. And then Ryan Wright, I was torn. I think Ryan Wright's pretty good, but if you want to go get the sweetest punter that there is as a rookie, one of those Australian guys with long hair, that'd be fine by me too. But I have a token of respect and continuity. I put Ryan Wright on my re-sign list. The guys I would not prioritize to re-sign, to be clear, I'm not going to be pissed if these guys come back or anything. Jonathan Bullard, I think, is a good run defender. But just like the speech I gave you on Garrett Bradbury, I want the Vikings to find a defensive tackle who can do it all. I've been asking for this since Kevin Williams retired, and that was in 2013. So Jonathan Bullard does what asked of him, and that's stuff to run, but I want a big, ferocious defensive tackle at some point that rushes the passer and stops the run. Believe it or not, I would not re-sign Cameron Bynum. I'll take a little heat here because I think you can take that money and he's going to ask for a big contract, Bynum is, I would take that money and spend it on Javon Holland from the Miami Dolphins because, you guessed it, he was drafted by Brian Flores. He always speaks glowingly about Brian Flores, and I reasonably think the Vikings can sign Javon Holland, and it wouldn't be weird at all. So I would not spend the money on Cameron Bynum unless Javon Holland is, going back to Miami or flat out tells Kwesi, screw you, I'm not coming to the Vikings. Would not sign Sam Darnold, obviously. Stephon Gilmore, it was great for what he was last year, but now we need to think about long-term, and a 34 or 35-year-old cornerback isn't the future. Believe it or not, Aaron Jones I would not re-up with, even though he says that he wants to return to the Vikings, and that's great, and if they bring him back, fine by me. But I would not. I would find a youthful solution, a veteran, which I'm going to talk about shortly, and then also draft a running back. And I think at Aaron Jones' age, you thank him for one season and say, appreciate the first 4 weeks. You were fabulous. And then everything got a little mediocre for my liking. Out Patrick Jones. Don't need him anymore. Fabian Moreau, just a depth guy. I would finally say goodbye to Nick Mullins, even though I'm a Nick Mullins guy. He deserves to be a QB2 somewhere. The Vikings have already endorsed. Bring back Daniel Jones. Dalton Risner, I would not bring back because he doesn't run block. I know this is kind of hypocritical. We asked for a pass-blocking guard for however many 3 straight years when Mike Zimmer was in charge. Well, we got one in Risner, and now I want a guy who can do both. I don't want just a one-trick pony, and that's what Risner is, only a pass protector in my opinion. Cam Robinson is a no-brainer to leave. He can get $12, $15 million somewhere, and it's not going to be from the Vikings, who already employ Brian O'Neill, Pro Bowler, and Christian Darrisaw. And then Jerry Tillery, I was on the fence. You could probably get him for cheap as a depth guy, but he can probably be a spot starter elsewhere. No thanks on Tillery unless they absolutely want it. Now, here's the free agents I would sign. I do think Javon Holland is realistic because the Vikings have this cap space. So you can put him in the mix. At center, I know there will be a bidding war for Drew Dahlman of the Atlanta Falcons. He's like the best center, leaps and bounds on the free agent market. The reason I would make him your priority free agent signing, circling that is the guy we want this offseason, is because you are going to be rolling with J.J. McCarthy. And I would rather a rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, have a veteran center rather than some dude we draft in round 5 in late April. So I invested a lot into the free agent, probably 3 years, $40 million, 3 years, $45 million in Drew Dahlman, so that we know the McCarthy era at center gets off to a good start. A proven commodity in Dahlman, who, you guessed it, run blocks and pass protects. I would also kick the tires on Cooper Kupp at WR3. I don't know if he's going to be released, but after his team lost to the Eagles, what was that, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago? He didn't sound like he was coming back. He sounded like he had no clue about his contract. He said, it isn't up to me. He sounded like he knew that he'd be on the chopping block. So if he's released, I would sign Cooper Kupp at WR3. If not him, there are also dudes like Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs. I would invest, a significant portion, they're talking $7 million in a WR3, because Jordan Addison's probably going to be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. And Jalen Naylor played well in spots, as WR3, but it wasn't consistent. So give me somebody like Cooper Kupp, who won Offensive Player of the Year with Kevin O'Connell as his offensive coordinator in 2021, and have Cooper Kupp wind down his career in purple. Here's my running back recommendation. I would sign Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm a little jaded here. 2021, is that the draft he came out of? He was all the rage for fantasy football players like myself, and he hasn't lived up to that reputation. But I think there's still the best to be written on Javonte Williams. If you get him in the Vikings system, hopefully it's improved a little bit. He's also one of the best pass blockers as a running back in the NFL. And I think that's a prerequisite for the way the Vikings run their offense. So I would sign Javonte Williams instead of Aaron Jones. Javonte Williams also, I think, 24, going to turn 25. So give me that 5 or 6 years of youth edge over Aaron Jones. Give Javonte Williams 2 years, $6 million, 2 years, $8 million, whatever his asking price would be. Then you'll notice here I'm trying to solve the offensive line in free agency because the Vikings flat out can't do it in the interior offensive line in the draft. I would add Kevin Zeitler from the Lions. He's old. Who cares? Offensive linemen can play until they're 37, 38 if they're good. I would sign Kevin Zeitler to a 2-year, $12 million deal, and he can wind down his career with the Vikings. I think he's 35 or so. And then your offensive line, in my estimation, would be Christian Darrisaw, Blake Brandel, Drew Dahlman, Kevin Zeitler, and Brian O'Neill. I think that could cause problems in the NFL and at least improve the Vikings. And remember, the Vikings' offensive line wasn't garbage the entire season. It just really went through a rough patch when it mattered the most. And then finally, my proposed defensive tackle solution is Milton Williams. Not Milton Wadhams from Office Space, but Milton Williams. He is one of the forgotten men on the Eagles' defensive line. You'll see him in the Super Bowl. But because the Eagles have Jalen Carter and Jordan Travis, nobody gives a shit about Milton Williams. But he's also really damn good, go figure, on that Eagles defense. He is probably in line to make about $12 million per year. He is a little bit better at pass rush than he is run blocking, but I would invest in that because it has been eons since the Vikings had a defensive tackle who could rush the passer from the inside of the defensive line. So Milton Williams, there are other names like Poona Ford, B.J. Hill, Javon Hargrave. There's a lot of defensive tackles that are decent. Last year we had really good ones in free agency that the Vikings didn't want anything to do with or ultimately didn't sign. So I would sign Milton Williams here, and you'll find out quickly that leaves me with one primary need for the draft, and that is cornerback. And in that very draft, I'm okay if they stick and pick at 24. I don't think anybody will be too disappointed, but I think this is an opportunity to trade down a little bit, not like the 2022 draft where, they trade down 20 spots and didn't get a whole bunch in return. But I'm talking trading down about 10 spots or so. I think the Vikings could get the 36th pick and the 70th pick for the 24th, and then like a 6th rounder to the Jaguars. So you're looking at having a round 2 and a round 3 pick for the price of your 24 and some late rounder that you have to send for deal sweetener. Then, with the 36th pick in the NFL draft, I'm not sure who is going to fall at cornerback. I don't think Benjamin Morrison would fall that far coming off his hip injury. But somebody like Eastern Carolina's Siobhan Revell Jr., he's also coming off ACL, I believe he tore. But moral of the story is wherever the Vikings pick in round 1 or early round 2, I think it's time that you cross your fingers and you hope they get cornerback, right? CB, because you don't have anything else in the pipeline besides Mekhi Blackman. Byron Murphy I've already recommended, or I think I did. Did I skip him? Byron Murphy is certainly somebody I would extend. I think I skipped it when I gave the big speech earlier. But yeah, give him his large contract, and then your cornerback room would be something like Byron Murphy, Siobhan Revell, Mekhi Blackman, Shaq Griffin, Dwight McGlothern, and then you're cooking with gas a little bit. I can't believe I forgot to mention Byron Murphy on my signed back list, but yeah, he is most def in there. Byron Murphy, and then with the second pick, this is crucial. I want you to listen to this. This will probably be, depending on if the Vikings trade back, if they do trade back, it'll probably be in the 60s or 70s. If they stick and pick with the compensatory pick, what is that, 90, 92 or 97? This is where they should also get a running back. So I'm thinking cornerback, Siobhan Revell, hopefully, and then running back like Quinton Judkins from Ohio State, the other Ohio State, Travion Henderson. I'm not sure if they would reach for Cam Scatabo, who Josh Fry talks about repeatedly on the show. Caleb Johnson's really good. This running back class is super deep at running back. So I wanted the Vikings to do both. Listen up. Sign Javonte Williams or somebody like Najee Harris or Jalen Warren. If you got to bring Aaron Jones back, do that. And also draft a running back with your second pick in the draft. Now, this endorsement kind of assumes that Ashton Jeanty won't be available at pick number 24. If he was, I would absolutely do that and not bitch about it one bit, not debate it, not overcomplicate it. I would draft Jeanty, and boom, we're back to the era of running back majesty like we had with Adrian Peterson and Dalvin Cook. But I would go cornerback with the first pick, wherever that may be, running back with the pick thereafter. If you have another pick in the round 3, if it's a compensatory, I'm thinking probably safety, maybe offensive line. We'll know if we need a safety by then because Cameron Bynum will either have left or Harrison Smith will retire. That will change how the Vikings offseason is, but remind you, I think they'll make a play at Javon Holland and probably get him because of the ties to Flores. And then later in the draft, we're already down to round 5 because the Vikings have so few picks. I would take a flyer on a WR3. Every class seems like it's pretty decent when you get into round 4, round 5 for WR3 types. It's because the threshold to be a WR3 really isn't that high. What do you got to do? You got to get 550, 650 yards and 6 touchdowns. Boom, you're a WR3. So I'd go cornerback, running back, safety or offensive line, and then round it out with your WR3 who can challenge Jalen Naylor, especially if they ignore my recommendation about Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper. So that's what I got from head to toe. Hopefully you appreciate that. If you disagree with it, so be it. Let's hear it. You can talk about it in the comments. We'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, January 29th, talking with Josh Fry about his offseason predictions. This was my endorsement. Skol, baby.